Faith stood by the window, watching the rain-soaked pavement, unable to believe this was happening to her. To her, the woman who had given 23 years of her life to this man, who bore him 2 children, washed his shirts, cooked his meals, listened to his endless complaints about work, and massaged his tired shoulders in the evenings. "So, you're leaving for your lover," she said quietly. Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to stand tall. "Fine. Go. But you're not coming back." Andrew froze by the door, suitcase in hand. Something flickered across his face, surprise, irritation, perhaps, but he quickly regained his composure. "Who'd even want you, old woman," he muttered bitterly, as if she were the one to blame for everything. "Look at yourself, a worn-out housewife in a stretched robe." "But Lena. Lena is young, beautiful. She understands me." He left the apartment, slamming the door behind him. Faith remained standing in the middle of the room. She didn't cry. The tears would come later, at night, when she lay in their bed, now only hers, realizing that her life had split in two. She was 45. 23 years of marriage. 2 grown children. Her son studied in another city, her daughter worked abroad. She had no real education or profession. For the last 15 years, she had simply been a housewife. Andrew had earned well and used to say, "Why work? You've got enough to do at home." And now. The apartment was rented, there were no savings, everything had gone toward the children. Alimony? A joke. The kids were adults. Officially, she'd never worked. Andrew left easily, taking nothing but leaving behind emptiness and fear of tomorrow. The first week passed in a fog. Faith moved mechanically through the apartment, cooking but not eating, turning on the TV but not watching. She called her daughter, tried to sound cheerful, but Nancy understood anyway. Nancy offered her mother some money, but Faith refused. The young had their own lives, their own expenses. Then came anger, fierce, burning, giving her strength. Faith looked in the mirror, honestly, without illusions. Yes, she had gained weight, stopped taking care of herself. But didn't she have the right to be tired? Were 23 years of marriage and family not enough? "Old woman," echoed in her head. She was 45, not 80. Life wasn't over. The next day, Faith cut her hair short, stylish, bold. The hairdresser gasped, "It suits you. You look 15 years younger." Then Faith sold everything unnecessary that had piled up over the years, old furniture, trinkets, half her wardrobe. The money lasted 2 months for rent. She found a job as a shop assistant in a small neighborhood store. The owner, an elderly woman named Alice Mitchell, looked at Faith carefully. "You've got experience written all over your face, life experience. Come tomorrow." The work was hard, her feet ached, her back hurt, but for the first time, Faith felt alive. Truly alive, not just existing within 4 walls. Gradually she began to talk with customers, remember their preferences, joke with them. People loved her sincerity and warmth. Alice became not just her boss, but her mentor. She taught Faith the basics of bookkeeping, explained how small business worked, and 6 months later promoted her to manager. Alice was getting older and wanted to rest more. Faith blossomed. She lost weight, started yoga, met new people, even signed up for online business courses. The world was changing, and she wanted to change with it. Soon the store had its own website, then delivery service. Profits doubled. Alice would shake her head in amazement. "Faith, you're gold. Where were you hiding all these years?" Faith didn't even know herself. No one had ever given her the chance to unfold, not even she herself. A year passed unnoticed. Nancy came home to visit, and didn't recognize her mother, slim, radiant, wearing a stylish suit. "Mom, you're amazing." Nancy hugged her with tears in her eyes. "I was so worried about you." "And I wasn't worried about myself," Faith smiled. "Sometimes you have to fall before you can learn to fly." That very evening, after her daughter left, the doorbell rang. It was late, almost 10. Faith looked through the peephole and froze. Andrew. He stood in the hallway, slouched, pale, in a wrinkled jacket. It was hard to recognize the self-satisfied man who had slammed the door a year ago. Faith opened. Andrew stared, speechless, at the slender woman before him, in an elegant house dress, short hair, and confident gaze. Faith, is that really you? Hello, Andrew. What do you want? He swallowed hard. Can I come in? To talk? She let him in but didn't offer him a seat, standing with arms crossed, waiting. Lena left, he finally muttered. 3 months ago. Found someone younger and richer. I lost everything. Faith, I invested in her business, and she cheated me. Faith was silent. There was no triumph in her eyes, only calm, sad clarity. So you came back. Why? I just thought, maybe we could try again. We were together 23 years. I've changed. I realized what I did. You're alone, I'm alone. Faith turned toward the window. The city lights shimmered below. Somewhere out there was her store, her work, her new life, the life she had built herself, brick by brick from the ruins of her heart. Do you remember, Andrew, she said, facing him. A year ago, you called me an old woman. And you were right. He flinched. Yes, I was an old woman at 45, because I'd stopped living, become a shadow, an attachment to you and the kids. I forgot that I'm me, an individual, with my own dreams, desires, and abilities. So when you left, you gave me a gift. Was it painful? Yes, unbearably. Was it terrifying? Of course. But it woke me up. I found work, I found myself, and discovered I can do so much more than I ever thought. She took a deep breath. But you know what the most important thing is? I learned to love myself, Andrew. And I'm happy alone. I have a job I love. Plans. Friends. I wake up smiling, and I fall asleep peacefully. I don't want to change anything now. But I love you, Andrew whispered. I realized it only when I lost you. Faith shook her head. No, you love the Faith who washed your socks and never argued, the convenient, obedient one. But that Faith is gone. Forever. She opened the door. You didn't come out of love, Andrew. You came because you're lost and afraid, looking for a lifeboat. But I'm not a lifeboat. I'm a living person with my own life. And that life is precious to me. Faith, please, no. Listen to me. A year ago you slammed this door and left. Today, I close it, not with anger, but with gratitude. Thank you for the lesson. Goodbye. The door closed softly, without a slam. Faith leaned against it, eyes shut. No tears, only gentle sadness for what might have been, and a clear, steady sense of rightness. She went to the mirror, looked at her reflection, and smiled. Life was beginning anew, and it was beautiful. 6 months later, Alice retired and offered Faith the chance to buy the store. It was terrifying to take out a loan, to become a business owner, but that fear was no longer paralyzing. It lifted her wings. Faith took the risk, and won. The business thrived. She opened a second shop, then a third, hired employees, many of whom became true friends. Work felt like a celebration. One day, a tall, kind-eyed man walked into the store, Edward, a history professor from the local college. They struck up a conversation about books, then met for coffee, theater, and art shows. Faith didn't rush. She no longer feared solitude, no longer needed anyone to fill a void, because there was no void, only the fullness of life. Edward was patient, attentive, and saw in her not a housewife or a businesswoman, but simply Faith, a warm, fascinating woman. And Andrew? Her son mentioned him sometimes. He had found a job as a manager, rented a room, lived quietly. Faith felt neither spite nor pity, only peace. That chapter of her life was over. Sometimes she remembered the night the door closed, and silently thanked fate for the pain that strengthened her, the fear that taught her courage, and the loss that became her greatest gain, finding herself.